You basically just throw shit at a wall and have a really good testing methodology on what you learned and how to keep, double down on what works, pull back on what doesn't, and understand what a test looks like. And so, that was really early advice that I just doubled down on and started focusing on marketing. And I, used things that I had already knew, like how to use language and things like that to help. But, hindsight's 2020, I, in college again, made fun of marketing majors and didn't think there was anything to marketing.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Founder Hour. I'm your co-host, Pat.
I'm Posh.
Posh is here as well. And today on the show, we have Erik Huberman. He's the founder and CEO of Hawke Media. Erik, it's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. So I know it was recently Hawke Fest.
Yep.
You guys, throw this, I don't want to call it conference because you call it an anti-conference. So tell us a little bit about Hawke Fest and what kind of the anti-conference is.
Yeah, so, I wanted to have an environment, and since I started Hawke, so it's been almost 5 years, I wanted to have this, event destination where we could bring some of the top minds in e-commerce together, but less like a trade show conference where you're walking the floor and everyone's trying to sell you something. And, most of the crowd are people trying to learn, not necessarily people already doing it right. So more of, what's proliferated as the mastermind kind of style conference, but also not have it feel like a stuffy conference. And so, we've done it 2 years now, and part of the goal has been to make it feel more like a day of fun that, you happen to learn a bunch and you happen to get a good network going, but it's more about like the experience and really making sure people enjoy themselves and don't feel like it was a day of work.
Love it.
Yeah.
I feel like it attracts a lot of people that may not have actually gone to like a trade show or something.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to, thankfully, we don't pay for speakers. It's more people that are willing to share because they're sharing with each other, and they're also able to learn from each other because of the caliber of people we attract there. And then we break it up with, this year was circus themed, so we had circus performers and knife jugglers and all sorts of fun activities. We had a tarot card reader and a psychic and some stuff to go do, like to break it up instead of just like panel, keynote. We also sped it up a lot. So keynotes were like 15 minutes, panels were like 20. So
that's another thing. Rapid. I feel like, it gets a little bit exhausting at times, at normal trade shows where like you have like an hour long talk and it's like 5-minute break and then back to another one. And we
noticed, and we were hoping for this, but we didn't find out that like speeding it up forced people to go right to the point a lot quicker as opposed to ramble on about shit that nobody really cares about. Cause you get that all the time where you have like people who, so, how many times have I heard content is king on a marketing stage? And so, here seeing that you get past that really quick and go right to really dive into the details, it helps a lot.
Mm-hmm. So, Erik, did you grow up in LA or?
Born down here, grew up in Ojai, so not too far, about an hour and a half north.
Okay, and have you always been here, like, or did you move out?
I went to school in Arizona when I was 17, and then 4 years there, moved back here when I was 21, came to Santa Monica. I was like, there's no place I'd rather live. I'll figure out what I'm going to do, but I want to live in Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm. Erik, if we asked your friends what you were like in high school, what would they say?
Probably a nerd. I was a competitive gamer, and this is a time that you never told people you were a competitive gamer. I went to a really small, like, hippie school, so it wasn't the typical school. So, like, everyone was kind of accepted for who they were, and it was, like, all lovey-dovey. So it wasn't ever, like, the movie style, like, you were a nerd. I was still, like, I played on the basketball team and, worked out every morning with my two best friends. But it was a small town, small school. We had 11 kids in our graduating class. So, but I definitely was a very different person in high school than after going to college and everything.
Were you like academic at all, or was it more like just more well-rounded?
I had a really easy time in school. So like basically without doing anything, I got, high, like 3.7 or something GPA. I can't remember what my high school GPA was, but it was somewhere around there without ever trying. I mean, I would sleep through our physics class to the point that our physics teacher started just saying, like, just go on a run or something, just show up for the tests. And I'd come back for the testing. I got an A in physics. So it was like certain, especially logic driven stuff, I had no problem with if there was a logic around it.
It was just easy to grasp.
It was easy to grasp, yeah. Same thing happened to me in college. I took aeronautics my freshman year, and the curve put 32% at an A, and I got a 92% in the class. Wow. And not because I had a background, and I just kind of understood it. Like, it makes sense. Why do things float? Why, things like where buoyancy comes from. And so when things can just make sense. Now the opposite with like I got a D in aesthetic architecture in college because I was like, I don't know if that's Art Nouveau or Gothic. I don't get it. What's the difference? Like, I needed like tangible logic for it to make sense to me.
Okay.
So when you went to college, did you have any sort of idea of what you wanted to do?
Yes and no. My family's in real estate. In high school, my school actually gave me every Wednesday half day with my two best friends to go work with some of my dad's partners in the real estate office and learn like real estate investing and how that worked. And so I thought I was going to do that, got away from it in college and really just focused on learning. So my first year I worked in a real estate office, second year worked selling Cutco knives, because I actually was looking for a sales job. I tried to get a job as a used car salesman because like the epitome of difficult sales, and they wouldn't hire me for 3 months. So that didn't work out for a summer. So I ended up selling knives, but wanted to learn sales. And then the third summer, ended up starting my first company, all through just a friend came up with a business idea and said, I need a sales marketing guy. You should come in and help me. And so I was focused on learning. I did it with him for the summer, thought about dropping out. That was after my junior year. And then just went, it was a storm drain filtering company when they made it the law in California to filter storm drains. And so decided against that, just gave him the business, walked away from it. And he built it to a multi-million-dollar business. He did a good job with it. But then when I graduated, I went right back to the real estate idea and actually went into real estate the first year out of college, got my license, became a commercial real estate broker with the plan of doing that for a while to learn the business and then get into investing. But I started 1 week to the day before the entire banking industry collapsed. So that year I made $350 and decided it was time to start looking at other options.
Yeah, that's so funny. I feel like someone recently we had started selling Cutco knives as well. I don't know if it was like a thing back then or.
Yeah, it's still a thing. They recruit an insane amount of college kids every year. That's their whole model. So like my business partner did it. Okay. I have a new business partner that's running the fund. We have a venture fund here too, and the guy running that also did it. So like,
I think I spoke to him.
Drew,
Leahy.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a great entry-level sales training. Like we look at it all the time.
What was so great about it? I mean, what was the biggest takeaway for you from selling knives?
Yeah, so they have you literally go to the script to the point that like when you're first selling, you are reading a script in front of the person. Like you are sitting.
This is face-to-face.
Yeah, it's all face-to-face sales, and it's
like
all
literally door knocking.
No, it's warm leads. So it's Can you recommend anyone that would see me? But I'm poor little freshman, or at that point sophomore in college. Do you have anyone else that I can go talk to and just do my pitch? Because I get paid. This is where the brilliance is. They pay you per appointment, but because of the law of averages, if they're paying you per appointment and you're not selling anything, they fire you pretty quick. You're like I think I don't remember the numbers exactly, but I think it's like 20% are going to buy every time. 50% are going to, are right in the middle, and then 10% are never going to buy. It's like, but if you pre-qualify, that added to 90%, but you get the drift. And there's, 10%, who knows? But if you pre-qualify correctly, which they have the 3 pre-qualifications, are they over 25? Do they own their house? And I forget the last one. It's been a while, but the point being, if you pre-qualify and you do it, it's the law of averages pick up. They know that they're not going to pay you $16 an appointment because you're going to sell enough knives to way overcover that. And so you sit there and read this script, and because I was like all bought in, because I took the job to learn sales, I didn't take the job to make money. I was like, I want to learn something. I read the script, but then I started to try to understand why I said everything I did, because this is a script that had been around for 30 years and honed down to a point where it was exactly perfect. So I started to understand why you said certain things, why you start somewhere. And still to this day, I use it where it's like, right before you get into price, you talk about their competitor and you go, Henkel's are amazing knives and they're blah, blah, blah. And you take out the slip. You're like, this knife is blah, blah, blah. And it's so good. But here's why, and it's $1,500 for this set. But here's why ours are better because of this and this and this. And you set this expectation that you just said $1,500 and now you're about to say $2,500 for yours. And then you go, but ours are $800. They're like, wait, they're way better and they're $800. And you sit there talking to someone, and it's a college kid that would never, ever, ever spend $800 on a knife set. And I sold, many in my first week. Yeah. So, I sold, I have it somewhere, but I did like $12,000 or $13,000 in sales in week 1.
Wow.
And that also taught me, like, apparently I have a knack for sales. So I kept up with it, made a bunch of money that summer. And
why do you think that was? Like, what do you think made you a good salesperson?
Honestly, my dad I love him, but he was a very touchy guy growing up, and the difference in the way I said something would either get what I wanted or set him off. And not in a way that's like violent or anything, but like I could literally say like, hey, I want to go to the park. And he'd be like, oh, that's nice. You want to go to the park? Or, hey, can I please go to the park today? Yeah, yeah, sure. It's like literally the point was the same, but like the difference in way that your word choice changed a lot. I think from kind of tap dancing that way my entire life. My dad also is an entrepreneur, always negotiated with me, pushed me to be that. Like there was some intent behind it too. That, I mean, at that point, like even his partners like Erik can sell ice to Eskimos, like I just understood slight word changes, what kind of reaction I get, because my dad was so reactive that I saw the like extreme of the reaction. So it like trained me to be like, well, how do I've ever seen people react to that word? Great. Don't say that, say this. And it's the same point coming across, but people are that reactive and emotional about things.
So after you realize that you have this knack for sales and you're kind of going through college and you then started that company, what was the plan once that was all said and done? Was it to go back, and you said you went back into real estate.
Yep.
That ended. So what in your mind, are you just like, I have no idea what I want to do, or I have some sort of idea? Like, so what's going on in your head?
No, I mean, I didn't decide to go into real estate post-college until like February of my senior year. And I was like, oh shit, I got to start figuring out my job.
Do something.
Yeah.
Everyone's like interviewing for jobs. And it's like,
or already had them. I mean, that was also right before the financial collapse. So all my friends that were I was a management major. I would, funny story, make fun of marketing majors. I'm like, what do you do? Draw pretty pictures? Like, how does marketing work? And even though I had nothing to brag about, and then my finance friends were all like getting jobs at big banks. Well, that went to shit. It was literally the year, like they all got retracted that summer. But in February, they all like had friends that were like going to New York, going to Texas, going to all these places to take those jobs. And I honestly had no clue then. And then when I went into it and it didn't work out, I still didn't really have a clue. But about 6 months in to real estate, I realized I got to do something. And so I ended up studying for the LSAT and doing really well, but realized I didn't want to be a lawyer. I ran the LA Marathon because I was sitting at breakfast in January of 2009 and with my stepdad, and I was like, I think I want to like train for something. Like I was looking for something to grab onto from sort of complete something. And I'm like, I think I'm going to run a half marathon. He goes, what are you, a pussy? You're 21 years old or 22. Go run a full. I'm like, all right, fine. And so like 4 months later, ran the LA Marathon. And so was looking for something. I was always like, I was the first one in the office, last one out. Like I always wanted to, I like working. So then I started to work on side projects. Had a friend in my office in real estate that we worked on a couple things together. We're still friends today, but nothing was like a really good business idea.
This is not real estate related, just something else.
No, we bought the letter R talk.com and we were going to make like a real estate like forum or something. We didn't know. We were figuring it out. Still on the domain name actually. And and then a friend's dad who I grew up with, I played music all through childhood from 4 years old on. And my drummer, I was a guitarist. His dad, I didn't know this, was a really prominent businessman. And he called me and said, hey, I've been admiring your kind of entrepreneurial spirit. I have an idea. I really want to help harness the raw entrepreneurial spirit of musicians and help them focus it. I want to find a way to help them figure out how they should be spending their time to actually make money as a musician. And so had no plan, just had a mission. And I went, let me run with it. That was February, I think, of 2009.
Is this around the time when like streaming is like starting to become like a thing? And
I mean, it was way post Napster. This is 2009, so post Napster and everything, it was already a thing. But Spotify definitely wasn't out here yet. It was in Europe, but it was probably the bottom of the music market. And it was
I think it was like distributing it on like iTunes and like even like I don't know what other music platforms there were back then, but it was like distribution on iTunes. You had to go buy like individual songs or things like that. So
SoundCloud wasn't big yet yet. But iTunes was definitely making waves. But it was a bad time in the music industry, and so I said I had nothing better to do. So I started writing a business plan, came up with a bunch of ideas, ran it by him around April of 2009, and he's like, "Okay, great. Let me look into this and see what we can do." And then kind of checked in now and then. Somewhere around mid-July, I still remember this. We put on a real estate auction at the real estate office I was in, and I brought in $35 million in listings at a time when no one was selling anything. And they said, "We'll just bring in the listings. We'll get the buyers there." And they had just been bought, my real estate office, by like a $2 billion real estate fund, a REIT. And so they're like, "We can bring them. Like, we'll get some stuff sold." So I get all these buyers there. We put on an auction August. It was either July 31 or August 1st. And I show up with all the buyers, and one property got one bid at half its value. And I never came back I went back to the office like 6 months later. I left my shit. I was just like, I'm out. I'm done with this. So I called the guy back, and he had actually got through his network, committed 250 grand to fund it, to let me run with it. Offered to pay me minimum wage living in Santa Monica, which was better than I was making so far. So I was like, let's do it. And we're off to the races. So started building that. And then he ended up raising another 750. So total $1 million for the
What was that called? What was the
Fame Wizard?
Fame Wizard.
Yeah.
And what was like the premise?
It was basically one-on-one business coaching for musicians.
I see.
Helping musicians figure out how to make money doing what they're doing. And it went through a bunch of iterations, but that's really where
And you were the one helping them?
I was running it. So
you were coaching musicians?
No. I brought on, this is where, so turns out my friend's dad was on the board of Men's Warehouse, had another company with Deepak Chopra, was one of the co-founders of Pay-Per-View. So long history of success, a lot of network. So we ended up bringing on this board of advisors that was like Tom Silverman, who started Tommy Boy Records, which is like all of the old school hip hop, Naughty by Nature, Too Short, Queen Latifah, Wu-Tang, like all him. And so got him on board, got David Page from Toto, which was awesome. Actually found a video of him and I jamming recently, which was, that was kind of the fun bonuses and perks of it. And then we hired the president of Disney Records to come help me run it, Mark Jaffe, awesome guy. And I became the chief operating officer, then went to chief development officer because I was more focused on business development and growth. And then we hired a COO and started building it. And I ran it for 2 years. We got it to profitability, realized it was never going to be that big of a business. The COO became the CEO, and I moved on. And
how old were you at this time?
I was 24.
And like in hindsight, I mean, just looking back, like at who you were when you were 24 years old, like why do you think your friend's dad trusted you and believed that you would be able to run this thing?
I actually totally get it. I made more money investing in a 24-year-old last year than I made on my own company. Putting in, a decent amount of money, but an investment into a 24-year-old that has over 20x'd my money for me while I've been working on my own stuff and coaching him. It's a lever.
Like as an investor or?
Yeah. So it's a lever. It's, this is a guy that's in his 60s and wasn't going to go hustle and build this himself, had a lot of other things going on, but for him to get his friends together and throw down $1 million on a bet that I was going to hustle and he was going to guide me was a reasonable bet. It's a smart thing to do, especially because of all the connections he opened up for me and everything. There was a possibility there. What we ran into was the one thing we didn't think through enough is independent art, which is obvious when you talk about it, but independent artists don't have any money. So it was $50 a month, which is nothing to get business coaching, but we churn through 90% of them because 90% of artists aren't struggling artists because they are super passionate. They're struggling artists because they don't want to work.
Right.
And so when we started telling them, like, here's all the work you have to do, they'd be like, yeah, screw this. Now, there was a small portion that were great, but not a big enough cohort for $50 a month to make a business out of that was going to ever be massive.
So now that you've kind of moved on, what was the next step for you?
So ended up starting with a neighbor in Santa Monica, came up with this idea for a t-shirt subscription company called Swag of the Month. And this was pre-Dollar Shave Club and all that. So it wasn't like a big business idea yet to build e-com subscription. I just thought it'd be cool to just get a t-shirt every month and not think about it and refresh your wardrobe. So it was when graphic tees were big too, and swag was a popular word.
Yeah.
So it worked really well. We got on the cover of Wall Street Journal, and like we're in Maxim, Huffington Post, TechCrunch. Thrillist basically launched us in every one of their territories.
So you started it?
Yeah. We launched it within a couple months. I got a buddy from college to build like a one-page lander that went to a PayPal page. Like, it was super simple. But the Thrillist and TechCrunch articles hit the first week and got us like 400 or 500 subscribers like that.
Yeah.
And so 400 or 500 paying $17 a month.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a business.
What was like the opportunity you saw? Like, why did you think that this would be? I mean, clearly it was like something that people wanted.
Yeah, it was really simple. It was just like, I want this. Like, I would love to pay $17 a month and just get a cool T-shirt.
Yeah, and it was like random graphic tees that you would be designing, or you would be like get the licensing
we
for
partnered
it?
with about 120 brands. So like every big one, like Billabong, Ruka, et cetera, down to small. And we did build a few of our own brands.
Oh, like they would just give you like clothes to put in?
At first, they'd give it to us for free. We convinced them it was
like
an advertising. But once we got, exactly. Once we got enough volume, then it became we'd buy them for cost, which was still great.
How do you convince a company like that to give you free shit when you have no audience?
Honestly, what I think it was two young guys are asking for like 200 T-shirts, and from Ruka, they're like, yeah, we probably have that in a box somewhere we'll never use. Like, sure, go ahead, take it, whatever.
But don't they think, I mean, like, just to play devil's advocate, like, you guys could be two young guys that just, like, fuck up their brand and, like, you know, send some other shit with it, and, you know, they can't manage that.
Yeah, I don't think, like, what do they call that brand? Jesus. We get asked about that all the time.
Cannibalization, or no, not really.
There's a term used for it, like brand safety, basically. But anyways,
Protection?
Something like, I forgot the actual term right offhand, but basically with protecting your brand like that, like, yeah, a few brands care. Most are going to, like, look at Nike right now.
Yeah.
You know, with the two big things they just did. Both are awesome, have made them incredible amounts of money.
Yeah.
People that are running, especially in the brand world, other types of companies, industrial companies, B2B companies, yeah, they'll be brand protection because they want to just, you know, remain Switzerland. But if you're a brand and you're a fashion brand, you want to stand for something. And so, you know, they looked at who we were, they looked at Swag of the Month, and they went, what the, you know, it's this or sell that overstock to Marshalls. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
it's going to be better here anyways.
Right. And you guys didn't pay them for anything?
At first, no. We got thousands of T-shirts for free. And then
And how did people find out about this?
press to start, and then we started trying to learn digital marketing and like search engine marketing. Facebook didn't have advertising yet, so it wasn't an option. We tried some email marketing stuff. We were playing with different affiliate marketing, all these different things. That's where I started to learn this digital stuff, because Fame Wizard, we ended up with 15,000 musicians all through Craigslist hacking.
Wow.
So that's all we did there. So I didn't know that. I mean, I understood marketing as a general concept, but then I started to learn the different tactics with Swag.
So you were just doing this T-shirt thing for a while?
Yeah, for a year and a half before we got to a scale where we couldn't maintain. We raised no money, so it was like, do we sell it, shut it down, or raise money? Because we were working like 18-hour days and like couldn't keep up, but we couldn't afford to hire anyone.
Yeah,
and
I know how it goes.
You know, and yeah, exactly. And the unit economics weren't quite there to get us to a point where we could do that. So I tried to raise money. There was no podcasts out there about like how to raise money at this point. It was like very light ecosystem.
Right.
So I didn't realize
This is around what year? Like 2011?
10.
10, 11.
Yeah, like the economy's,
no, it was 11, sorry.
Economy's still shit, not much funding for companies like that.
Right. And I met with one VC, who's now a legendary VC, guy named Howard Morgan, who started First Round Capital, and super nice guy, but he had just invested in this company called Fab.com, which ended up being a burning disaster. But they sold fashion on it. And he's like, it's close enough that like this could end up being competitive. Great idea. Keep running with it, but I can't invest. And to me, I didn't know, based on what I was just saying, like, I didn't know you go pitch 100 people before you get a yes. Right. So I was like, well, that's it. There's the VC option. So that's gone.
He told me it's not going to work, so I guess it's not going to work.
Yeah. And so he said no. So we're moving on. So now it's sell it or shut it down. And literally out of luck, a woman I'd made friends with owned an e-commerce holding company that was cash flowing like a beast. And she's like, hey, have you ever, literally called me out of the blue, have you thought about selling your company? Like a week later. And I was like, what do you have in mind? She's like, I don't know. What would you want to sell it for? And I threw out a number that basically paid off the debt 4 years of startups gets you in. Oh, and I had 50%, or I had to double it because it was half mine, half my partner's. And she went, yeah, sure. Want to come pick up a check?
Oh, my goodness.
Shit, okay.
And how many customers did you have at the time?
A few thousand.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah, sold it to her. Nothing life-changing, just enough to kind of reset.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't lose money, so it's good.
No. And then, then I literally did that, went on Birthright, the trip to Israel that you get for free, and came back, and my roommates had changed our lease. Instead of being up in a month and 2 days, was up in 2 days. And so I had, great. I was at zero, like I paid off my debt, but I had no income. Had no idea what my options were. And didn't have a job, et cetera. So
I was going to say, like, you're like in your like sort of mid to late 20s at this time, right?
At that point, I'm 26.
Yeah,
25.
Right, and like I feel like, you know, like you might be looking around and like other people are like advancing in their jobs and whatever, and you've had like semi, I guess, successful ventures, but nothing that really blew up to the point where you're like, I can look at that as like a real success. So what is like going on through your mind? Like, what are you feeling at the time? Yeah,
that was probably like those 3 weeks were a low point for sure, because I had no income. Ended up staying with a friend because I couldn't sign a lease. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. And I just started hitting my network. At that point, I was ready to take a job because I had, let's say, struck out twice. And I was like, all right, like I'm going to go. Were
you like burned out at all?
No, not at all. Honestly, like it wasn't that. It was more just I needed to make money. Like I had been living off $10 an hour in Santa Monica for 5 years. Like I was that part was burnt out. I wasn't burnt out on the idea of grinding and trying to make it. And I still like the idea of like some sort of business development or sales job because like I want to benefit from my success and I want to control my own destiny. Right. And that goes back to...
I was just going to say that you have control over it.
Yeah. And that goes back to like I had a job in high school where 6 months in, I was working minimum wage. 6 months in, I was supposed to get a raise. He didn't give it to me. I went to the boss. He's like, "Oh yeah, I've been waiting for you to come to me." And I'm like, "Well, that's fucked up," and in my head. And then I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to give you a raise because I've been talking to your manager and like we want to see you doing." And he started listing things, and it was things I had been doing, but I realized my direct manager had been taking credit for my work. I was like, "Wait, I do that?" He's like, "Yeah, but your manager says he has to do it for you." I'm like, No, I'm doing that." Like it was like what? And I just like, and that made me never want to have success based on someone else's judgment of me again. Like I was like, I don't want this to be subjective. I want it to be objective, which is why I gravitated towards that. So I didn't know what I was worth on the market. Like I'd never tried to really get a job like this. So I went out and I got offered head of biz dev at Live Nation, which was, close to 6-figure job, head of eCommerce at Warner Music, and then a consulting role for this. All three, or the Warner Music actually paid shit. I'll call them out for that. They want to pay me $50,000 a year to run eCommerce for Warner Music. I was like, that's
what were they selling? What were they selling?
Merch.
Yeah.
And it was like, and they wanted
clearly they weren't selling, which is why they couldn't afford a salary beyond half.
And this story goes on, but I got offered that job, got offered head of biz dev at Live Nation, and then got offered to consult at this new incubator that had just started in Santa Monica, but they had just launched this. One of their first companies was Dollar Shave Club, and they're like, we need someone that, we need called, exactly. So Science offered me to consult there, and I was looking at 3, and of course my parents, and this was in those 3 weeks that I was trying to figure out. And my parents were like, well, you're obviously going to take Warner Music or Live Nation. I kid you not, both seemed a little iffy to me. Just the way, like I was used to startups. I was used to killing what I eat, but also like running my own show. Like being corporate didn't sound great. And I really didn't want to commute to Hollywood or Burbank or live there. It's like, as you guys just came the other way. I'm like, I don't really want to be out there.
I have the opposite problem.
Yeah. And so I'm not going to lie. That drove a big part of the decision.
That is a big, it is. I mean, we're in LA. Like,
it's draining.
It's a big thing. That's like, Pat was driving from Porter Ranch to Santa Monica.
I used to work in Santa Monica, and I would drive from Porter Ranch.
2 hours each way.
That's why I got into podcasts, actually.
That's like a part-time job, the commute. So it's like, why?
It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
I'm like always been kind of crazy about efficiency, and like to me, like there's just that
you can't do anything else but drive. You can listen to some stuff, but like at some point it becomes redundant, and it's like I'm not getting anything done right now.
I tried to get a developer friend of mine to build an app. I had a commute when I started this, and I'll get into that later, but I tried to get him to build an app that I thought would be perfect for commutes. It's like an audio version of Twitter, where you're just listening to bullshit, because I got so sick of the radio, so sick of my own music.
I had something like that where I was like, so like an app that you can connect with other people on the road within the same, like, and like just have conversations in the morning. Like, so it's like you can meet new people, but at the same time you're like awake and you're not like falling asleep.
Because it's not like, sometimes in the morning, I don't want to listen to a book or tape or a podcast. I don't want to learn shit. I just want to like listen to bullshit the same way you scroll through Twitter or Instagram. Like, so I was trying to build that. Never happened, but I hate
whoever can figure out this traffic solution. Hats off.
Well, it's Tesla.
We'll see about that.
Well, you see the news today. They just outsold Mercedes-Benz for the first time.
I saw that. Yeah.
So
you were talking about the 3.
So
the Warner.
Yeah, my parents were pushing to go to Warner or Live Nation, which good Jewish parents would do. But I decided to take the Science because it fit more. Even like friends that worked with me at Fame Wizard and advisors and stuff were all like, you've built a really good brand in like the lifestyle, like e-com, and now you have the opportunity to step into 2 music companies. Like, this is perfect. I'm like, yeah, but I like the startup thing. And so like I didn't, you can connect the dots looking backwards, as Steve Jobs said so eloquently. But I had no idea that I was stepping into anything other than like, right now this sounds like a good idea and I want to do it. And that year, I ended up helping Science. I consulted for all these brands, learned a lot from them. They learned from me because I was the only guy. On paper, I had the only exit in subscription e-com in LA, so I had built that brand.
But what were you consulting them on?
Growth, marketing, like that's because I had done it myself. And they're like, well, what'd you do here? What'd you do here? What'd you do? And started advising and then helped them launch. This is a really long story. I'll cut to the chase, though, is help them launch an activewear brand that in the first 6 months, we did $2 million in revenue.
Wow.
So rocket ship of a brand.
This is Science.
Yeah, this is out of Science, called Ellie. It's still around.
They launched it?
I was on the founding team, the head of marketing. They had a CEO launching a vitamin company. I helped him pivot to do this. They copied the Swag of the Month model, but for women's activewear.
Got it.
So we built that out. My partner became the VP of operations. I became VP of marketing. we basically, two-headed monster with a CEO above us that we'd report to, but we ran a lot of the company.
Right. And so how did you even find out about science?
Was literally at a tech cocktail bar night at South, a bar on the west side. I actually remember this. And a guy named Eason Elabreeze, who I still am in touch with, was working for Tech Cocktail as a reporter and introduced me to Mike McAdin, who was a partner at Science. And he said, you should come in. We should talk. This was actually when we were raising money for Swag. And so we had already built a relationship. And so when we sold it, it was like, oh, well, maybe we have something for you. And so that's how that happened. And so I ended up building Ellie with them for about a year. Another long story that we ended up selling it, but nobody really won off that, selling it to Bally Total Fitness. And that's when I started consulting and advising that continued to turn into this.
Mm-hmm. So like this was like, and how old were you at this time?
That was 26.
26.
Yeah.
So you've already started and sold 2 companies at this time. And now you move on from Ellie, was that what it's called?
Yep.
So you go back to consulting, or
I moved on from Ellie, and I actually had no idea what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Went to Mexico for a week, came back, and started getting hit up by a lot of people.
Did you think you're like hot shit at this time?
No. I always had no lack of confidence. I've never like the emotional shit you deal with, like you hear entrepreneurs, I'm not good enough, that kind of stuff. Like I'm just not emotional about this stuff. I'm more pragmatic, and so it's like, here's what I've done. Here's like,
I'll let you be the judge of it.
I'm very like illogical about it. Like I know I can offer this stuff because I've done it for 6 years now. I can definitely avoid pitfalls, and I've seen what success looks like. So, so I was able to. I had built a brand though, and just a little bit of a reputation in LA of like building these e-commerce companies, and so started to get reached out to a lot by bigger brands that were trying to figure this out. So
what was like, I guess, out of the whole process of building a brand, like what was like the main thing that you felt like very, very confident in? That like, was it like when you say growth, like was it customer acquisition? Was it more like strategy, marketing?
It was the fact that I knew, and it's still this way that today, most marketers either fall way too direct response and way too customer acquisition focused, or way too branding focused, and don't understand that it's about both. Because you build a house of cards with direct response, and you don't build a house at all with just branding. Yeah. So it's like you need both. You need to build both. And what's awesome about that is now in a time when advertising is getting much more expensive, we know how to handle that, where a lot of companies are just running Facebook ads that aren't performing and they don't even know why. And so I knew that after building these 2 fashion companies, like we did do Facebook ads and all this stuff in influencer marketing before it was a thing, and all these things that we understood, but I understand why it all worked, and it wasn't about just selling services and like, oh, you need to look at SEO. It's like SEO's at the time, there's ways to use it, but for the most part, when I was building those 2 companies, SEO was bullshit.
Yeah.
Did nothing for a fashion company.
I mean, it was just a bunch of fraudsters just like making fake links and...
Exactly. And I understood that not just because I'd been burned, but from a logic perspective. Like I understood why not doing search marketing made sense. And I was so like back to just, from the LSAT, from like just a lot of where I've always excelled is logic. And so understanding this equals this and how things equate and how things are going to turn out and kind of predict where it's going has always helped me in the marketing side too, of how to utilize different things.
And so these were both fashion brands that you had seen the growth of. Did you feel confident in growth just across the board, like different? I mean, were you consulting on other projects as well?
It just the value proposition changes, the messaging changes, the tactics don't really. You're targeting certain type of person with a certain value proposition,
even if it's B2B. Like
B2B. I mean, the thing people confuse with B2B is like, remember, you're still talking to an individual.
Right.
The value proposition changes a little bit there because it's a lot of times a little more logic than it is emotional appeal, but it's still emotional appeal because they just want you to handle it. They want to know that they're safe, that they're not going to get fired if they do this. It's depending on the person. If it's a CEO, they want to know it's off their plate and it's going to be handled. Like there's definitely emotional triggers to B2B too, but you're still talking to an individual that's the decision maker.
Right.
Did you end up building any sort of technical skills while doing this stuff? And like, I mean, by technical, I mean more so like on the engineering kind of like software side where you understood how these people actually built these platforms?
I understand it as much as anyone that's worked with a lot of engineers, but like, no, I have zero coding engineering chops. I mean, I've written in HTML and a little bit of JavaScript while Googling how to do it, but like, no, not at all. I actually thought about going to classes for it, learning it, doing a project, and quickly realized where I was spending my time was lucrative. So spending my time on that, like I should spend my time with what I'm already inherently good at
Right.
and find ways to get someone else to do that part.
On a more like greater issue, I know a lot of times Pat and I hear, and I think I'm the same way as well, where I don't think I'm very talented at one specific thing. I just think I understand a bunch of different things, and that makes it like, the jack of all trades versus master of like none, or master of one. So it makes it difficult to really choose a path to start off with. What's your advice to those that are that way? That, they enjoy marketing, they enjoy advertising, they enjoy branding, they enjoy fashion, they enjoy sports, but they have no idea how they can bring that all together or how they can just isolate one and just do something.
Start somewhere. I mean, it's
anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, you're not. I truly believe, and I'm not the first one to say this, the brain's a muscle. Like, the more you work it out and do stuff, because I sit and think about marketing and sales all day, every day, I get better and better than a lot of people at it just because I'm aware of it. I pay attention to it. I read about it. Like, that's what I exercise. And so at some point I made that decision. And the point why I made that decision to focus on it is because the 3 e-commerce companies I've built, my limitation wasn't how am I going to make a t-shirt, or how am I going to make activewear, or how am I going to get a coach to talk to this musician? It was, how am I going to get musicians? How am I going to get people to buy the t-shirt, to buy the activewear? And so marketing and sales always seemed like the more proactive challenge versus reactive challenge, where it's like, there's not an answer to this problem. Right. You have to keep trying things, testing things, learning that methodology. And I had really good advice when I had Swag of the Month, a guy named Chris Nella, that's now running ad product at Snapchat, but has run marketing for Shoe Dazzle, Gamefly, Soul Society, TradeZ, Thrive Market. Like, guy's awesome. And when I got introduced to him, and I was like, so how do you do this stuff? He's like, you basically just throw shit at a wall and have a really good testing methodology on what you learned and how to keep, double down on what works, pull back on what doesn't, like, and understand what a test looks like. And so, that was really early advice that I just doubled down on and started focusing on marketing. And I, used things that I had already knew, like how to use language and things like that to help. But, hindsight's 2020, I, in college again, made fun of marketing majors and didn't think there was anything to marketing.
So at the time, like, how self-aware were you that this was something that not only was the reason for your success with those 2 businesses, but also something that you enjoyed, and like looking back, like that was the one thing that I guess was the difference maker as opposed to the other aspects of the business, was like the marketing growth side of things, and that was something that you were gonna go into like full force.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. I started a company 6 months after Dollar Shave Club and outpaced them 6 months in. So with the company that went viral in the first week and going insane, like, we were making more money than them a year into.
And they were like next to you guys, huh?
Literally sitting at the desk next to us. Like, we were in the same room, sitting next to each other. We moved out of science before they did.
This is Michael Dubin?
Yeah, exactly. And he had a team at that point, but like, that to me was like, okay, so I know how to jumpstart a brand. Like, again, I'm objective. Like, this worked. We did this. We spent $500,000 to make 2 in the first 6 months, and that was recurring revenue, so it was just going to keep making money. And even if I didn't spend, like, there was a pattern here that, like, okay, I know how to do this stuff. All the things I wanted to do at Swag and didn't have the finances for, I did at Ellie, and it worked. So great. Now I understand, like, my gut and what I know about this and what I've learned. I'm on the right path. And now, fast forward, we've grown over 1,000 brands. I get so much insight every day into what works and doesn't that now it's easy.
So going back to that kind of scaling problem of like, you come at a point in a business where you just can't physically do it anymore without hiring more people, but the money has to be there to hire those people. And kind of going back to Posh's point about like, having like a sort of skill set in different things, but you said like, you would find someone that can handle like, let's say the technical side of things, and you would handle the side that you felt more comfortable on. How do you like, what is the key to becoming so like, not only resourceful, but like having the ability to build out the right team at that time with, like, because a lot of people, sorry, good job, but like a lot of people, maybe entrepreneurial, and they're trying to go into like the tech industry, but they don't know how to build a tech platform. So
I would say this is just my own opinion, but don't go into the tech industry, just like I haven't. Like, unless you meet that person that's the perfect match for you, that you can be the salesperson, they can be the tech, which people do. You
Right.
find that technical co-founder, but it's a marriage. A business partnership is a marriage. So jumping in a month in because you have this idea, you found someone to build it for you on the side because they say they're a developer, but you don't even know anything about, me included, don't know anything about development. In fact, we have a couple developers here, but traditionally we haven't, because I can't manage them because I have no idea what they're doing. And like they tell me a project will take 6 months or a year or a week, and it's the same project. I have no way of saying that doesn't make sense. Like everything
Right.
else here, I can at least judge and work with. But
Right.
part
That's
of
like not logical for you. There's no logic in that.
exactly. It's like I have no idea
Yeah.
why, and even when I ask, it still doesn't make sense to me. So
exactly.
it's like go with. If you're going to build a business, if you get lucky and you find a perfect partner, which like I have an amazing business partner here, but it is a marriage. So like jumping into a marriage after knowing someone a month, and my business partner here is the guy that took over a music company when I left. He worked with me for 2 years there. Then he ran it for 3 while I did the other 2 companies, and then came back to build this with me. So I've known him for 6 years before I started this.
And what was his name again?
Tony Del Mercado.
Tony.
Yeah. And so it's been great. But I literally dated him for 6 years before getting married. So it's like that wasn't as much of an issue.
So tell us about that time. Like, how did you and Tony meet, and how did you guys?
Yeah, he was running the nonprofit for my original co-founder investor on the music company.
I see.
Wanted to get out of that, and we had an opportunity to bring him on to do more operations for Fame Wizard. And then when I wanted to move on, he stepped in to take over.
And this is the architectural guy?
Yeah.
So he had did he ever want to start a company?
Yeah. I mean, he started a company in high school, and then
what company did he start in high school?
it was honestly a landscaping business, but it grew to like, I forgot how, it was a big landscaping business.
Really?
Yeah. While I was in high school.
Like he hired people to
yes,
landscape?
Like he sold the company, not like it was like a couple guys mowing lawns. He actually sold that business.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So entrepreneurial guy himself. And then he, after school, he did architecture. And, that's what it was. He went into Cutco, but he killed it at it. So at like 22, he was running all of the Southwest for Cutco, making $400,000 a year or something ridiculous. Yeah, he had a good time living in Vegas because it was Southwest headquarters.
Must be nice. Must be nice at that age.
Yeah, I know. He had a sick house and he said it once. He has like 7 different colored linen suits. It's like he had a good time. And then he joined. I forgot the path from there, but
his name's Tony, so it makes sense. I like it.
And I mean, he played D1 hockey. Like he's a big guy, fun guy. But he ended up joining a startup out here that didn't work out, and then joined this nonprofit. Then ran Fame Wizard he ran it for 3 years, and then I called him and said, I think there's something here with this, and
so
joined me.
So let's talk about what this is.
Sure.
This obviously being Hawke Media, and it seems as though it was a natural progression from what you had done.
Yeah.
From both building your swag of the month and also Ellie and doing all this stuff. It was really based on marketing, advertising, growth.
Yeah.
Why did you think that you can do this for other companies?
Yep.
Number one. Number two, why did you think that they would pay for it?
Yeah, there wasn't like, just to be clear, there was never like a business plan for Hawke Media. We did that a year in. I wrote a business plan because we almost sold it and then didn't. But that forced me to be like, what are we doing here? Like, what does the next 3 years look like? It was all reactive, and we got proactive this year, and it hurt us a little bit because we tried to predict things that didn't happen. And so now we're going back to like reactive in this business. So doesn't mean there's not vision and ideas of what I want to do, but jumping ahead of it's usually a mistake. So in this case, I again left Ellie, went to Mexico for a week, came back, started getting offered jobs at all sorts of companies. So the owner of Bally Total Fitness offered me a full-time job.
And this is the one that had bought Ellie, right?
Yeah. And I had known him before, and he offered me a job, and I was like, I'm not. Their offices are in East LA in Commerce, and I'm like, I'm not working full-time in Commerce. No, I'll work 1 day a week for you, and I'm also not going to get another job with someone that's going to make. Again, Ellie, long story, but there were a lot of mistakes made that were out of my hands that I was very vocal about not doing that collapsed the company in a lot of ways. And so I was like, I'm not letting someone else control my destiny again. Like, nope, but I'll advise for you 1 day a week. And he's like, make it 3. Like, all right, but I'm $100 an hour. And just to translate, like that's about $200,000 a year. I was making $100,000 a year at Ellie. So I literally just started working 3 part-time days a week, and I was making the same amount of money now and had the other 4.5 days a week to go do whatever I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
And he agreed to that?
he agreed right on. Okay, sounds good. I was like, all right, great. And so I'd go down there and work with him. And then I started on the other days. I'm like, we're here on a Saturday. I don't mind working. I like what I do. I like working. So I was like, all right, cool. So I started picking up other clients that were hitting me up like, hey, do you want to help us? Do you want to help us? We can't afford to hire you, but we'll pay you to advise. And so people started paying me to advise, and those companies started to do well. And the things I was advising on started to work. And about 3 months in, I had, I think, 8 clients, and I hired an assistant. I was like, I need someone to help me with some of this stuff that I can push some of the, grunt work off to.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and she would go with me to these different places. Amplify, the incubator here, actually just let me work there 2 days a week. And then I'd go down to Commerce 3 days a week.
Jeff Solomon, one of the co-founders on
so
the
Jeff's
podcast.
that's literally who invited me in. And Jeff and Chris Bjornerud at the time both have left now, but Jeff was president at the time, then Chris after him, but they were both there. And they let me work at their desk. They have this big long table. They'd let me work there with them. And after a few months of that, so it was like, I think, like November time, I decided, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I think I can hire a couple people. Maybe I'll get a little office. And we moved into this building in an office this big, about 200 square feet, 300 square feet, the couch, a conference table, and a TV. And that was our office. And Jeff had overheard me talking on the phone. And he goes, what do you do? I'm like, basically e-commerce and marketing consultant. And he goes, oh, I got a client for you. And referred me to an awesome company called Lulu in Georgia that we ended up working with for a couple of years. And she came on. They ended up hiring me, which honestly, them and one other referral I got through Amplify were our 2 first big clients.
Yeah.
And gave me what I needed to go hire the team I wanted. And that's when I was like, okay, this is where the impetus of Hawke came from. So I called it Hawke Media just because I didn't want to call it Huberman Consulting. So that's how the name came to be. But that's a whole nother story. But grew up in Ohio, lived right there.
Called it HuView.
Yeah, exactly. But the idea was I was trying to hire agencies to help. I'd go in and be like, you need to do Facebook ads, you need to rebuild your website, blah, blah, blah. Like, great, who's going to do it? So what I found was 2 options when it comes to doing marketing. You either hire a team in-house or hire an agency. Problem is, hiring in-house is not cost-effective generally. That's if you can find and attract talent, which especially in the employment market now, if you're anything but the sexiest startup, good luck getting a good marketer. And then even if you do hire it in-house, you're working in a vacuum now.
Well, it's not just marketing; it's also the designers and engineers. Sometimes
it's the whole
content
list.
people.
Yeah,
exactly. It's the whole list of people that you're going to build a whole team.
It's not
in-house.
one person,
right? Yeah. And on top of that, if you do it in house, you don't have the peer review that you do in an agency. You don't have the view into the market that you do in an agency. You lose a lot. And for I guess that institutional knowledge, I'm using air quotes, but as long as you have a good agency, they should be giving you all that reporting anyways. Yeah. So it doesn't.
You're also not learning much because you're not really testing different things or when you have multiple different clients, you're like, okay, this is working for this client. Maybe we could try it for this client. When you're in-house somewhere just doing the same thing over and over, there's really not much of an opportunity to learn and grow your knowledge.
But the driver to hire in-house makes sense to me because the other side agencies, 99% of them are awful. They're started by people that have no idea how to build a business. They're
just blow a bunch of money.
We talked about this a little while ago, like the SEO snake oil salesmen that you don't even know what the hell they're talking about.
But a lot of people fall for that shit.
Oh, exactly.
A lot.
And then get burned, and then I need to just hire someone because then then they're reliant on me too.
Exactly.
And I get that emotional. Again, it's an emotional decision, not necessarily logical, but that was a huge problem. Is I kept vetting thank God I knew marketing, so I'd vet these agencies and find that all of them were shit.
Yeah.
And then I'd finally find a good one, but they wanted high minimums, long contracts, some barrier that they put up to make them hard to work with. And so just got frustrated. So after 6 months and frankly a good roster of clients that I was making good money off of, I went, I'm just going to hire my own team. So we started with 7 people in this office.
And were they full-time or? All
full-time. I convinced them all to work for $36,000 a year. That's all I could afford. So
I was going to say, because with an agency, it's the problem of we can't guarantee the client's going to pay, especially in your case, you're not getting an upfront commitment of a year, so you don't know that they're going to continue to.
And my goal, what I did was I assumed I was already making that in consulting fees myself.
Yeah.
I took the risk to say if I hire these people, we'll be able to upsell into services. I know this person needs email marketing and this person needs, media buying, et cetera. So a little proactive, but I was like, this should work very quickly. And sure enough, I sold a couple contracts to do like full suite of services with us.
And how did you choose what you were like offering?
What worked? What actually would work for them and build a business?
It was like anything and everything that would work.
Yeah, like the things the marketing mix that worked for me at Ellie that still works today, 5 years later. But like, it was Facebook ads, search marketing, email marketing, web design, influencer marketing, overall marketing strategy. We needed someone to quarterback everything, and went back to him and just said, hey, everything's a la carte, month to month, cheaper than hiring in-house, but now we can spin up the team you need. And
were you giving them business advice as well? Like, this is what I think you need to do to
so that's the strategy.
Your business better?
Yeah, that's the strategy piece.
Like the consultation.
We have a few friends that have marketing agencies of their own, smaller boutique kind of stuff. And they're successful, they're making money.
Yeah.
But I've always found it interesting to see, how you can work with startup clients, because that's something that you were obviously, doing before you launched Hawke, and get them to actually pay you. Because like those are the ones that, for example, if I was in marketing, I would want to work with clients like that, because they are more eager to learn. They're more eager to try new things, as opposed to going to a bigger company where they know exactly, or they think they know exactly what they want. And they're more so telling you, but they have the money. So,
You'd be surprised. It's more of a culture thing on both sides. We get plenty of startups that think that they know everything, and we get plenty of massive companies. I don't think I'm allowed to name them, but we have one of the largest e-commerce companies in the world out of China. It's been our client for 2 years, and they're awesome to work with. They take our lead, they ask us questions, and then we'll get startups that have never done this before that tell us that all our creative sucks. And it's like, that's nice. We've grown many, many, many brands in your space to hundreds of millions of dollars, but you're probably the expert. It's just a personality thing more than anything. And with startups, what that does from a business perspective increases our churn on average, because companies lose money, go out of business, have the wrong idea, et cetera. They're definitely the more volatile ones. They're way more passionate. So that's a good thing sometimes. It's a bad thing other times, depending on the personality.
And when we see startups, is it like, are we talking seed stage as well, or like post-series A?
No, we'll help someone design their product and build their brand. So it's like pre-seed, like very, very early.
And they have money to pay you?
Sometimes, yeah. If they don't, they don't. What I tell people is, if you're not in a position, if you're not in a position to hire someone, you're not in a position to hire us. Like, we're not an alternative we're an alternative in terms of you get better work to hiring someone in-house, but like, we start between $2,000 and $4,000 a month, and that's just the fee.
Yeah.
You need to have some money to then deploy, et cetera. Like, you should really be spending around $10,000 a month in marketing for us to even be in the conversation, or anyone. It's like, you can go hire someone for $1,000 a month to run your marketing, but either they're making minimum wage and working half the time on your project, or they're making decent money and working like an hour a week on your project. And you want to see what the opportunity cost of that is. Like, usually I tell people, like, you're the founder, you need to go figure out how to get enough customers to pay someone the right amount of money and have the budget.
Which with e-commerce, it's all marketing.
Yeah.
The product really should hopefully sell itself, or you put time into
that. If it doesn't, it's going to be impossible.
If it doesn't,
anyways.
you can't market it anyways.
Yeah.
99% of your effort should be like marketing and advertising, all that stuff.
Yep.
And I feel like a lot of startups just don't know, or I don't even want to call it startups. I think a lot of founders don't know that financial kind of expectation that comes with a startup.
Yeah, we had someone
that has to, and it's all marketing.
Someone called one of my salespeople yesterday because he called me to ask like if he'd handled it right. They're like, hey, we need you to run our email marketing, our advertising, create our content, rebuild our website. There was something else. Run all our Facebook ads, social media, everything. We're doing this launch in 3 weeks.
Nice.
We need this all done in 3 weeks. And he goes, great. Well, this is going to cost about this. And he's like, and this will be about $4,000. So like, that'll be $8,000. Like $8,000. Oh, you're way out of, like, no, you guys are way too expensive. So, and he's like, oh, okay, thank you. And he called me. He's like, should I have like tried? I'm like, no, that's someone that has their expectation. Like, it's, again, people don't think about it. And like, people will tell us like, oh, well, this agency is way cheaper. I'm like, okay, so our margins aren't crazy. So there's only 2 ways another agency is cheaper than us. It's either they pay their people less or they pay people less or put less time at each client. That's it. That's the levers to pull.
Right.
So automatically, your quality is for what you're charging. Your quality.
Yeah. It's like, we don't have 80% margins. So like, we have 15. So they're not playing with their margin because then they're out of business. So it's like either the quality of work is going to suffer or the caliber of work.
I feel like at that point, I would just be like, how much do you think you would spend if you were doing all of this on your own?
Right, and we do that too. And so we get that conversation.
I mean, it's going to be more than $8,000 probably because they're going to, by the time they figure it out, they're going to spend $8,000 just
totally.
failing.
I'm like, good luck with your opportunity cost. When people say that to me, I'm like, cool, go for it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to charge you 5%. Like, do the math in your own head. What would you do for that amount of money? Yeah. And like, that's what we want to pay you $1,000 a month. Exactly. You know, it's kind of conversation. I'm like, I pay my people 6 figures. Like, no. So.
Was it difficult in the beginning to get clients, or because of the experience that you had in building and selling companies?
No, it's also like, to this day, I haven't seen an agency actually build on the premise of like being client-centric. Do the right thing for the right reasons. Don't hold them into anything. Like, make this easy on them and make it simple to get good marketing talent. Like, it's crazy to me, but like, there's one agency that started a year before us in LA that's a little older than us that's grown at, a third our pace in that time, but they're okay, but they just focus on advertising, not everything else we do. And then that's it. Like every other agency I've seen, it's still snake oil. There were 2 agencies that I thought were going to be decent. Like I started hearing good things, and then they came to me to white label us. And it turned out they weren't an agency. They were just white labeling other agencies, and they had a CEO that was good at talking to people. So it's like, it's amazing to me, but there's just not that many people that know what they're doing that are building agencies. Because most of the time, I heard this from someone the other day that I was talking to, a really cool CMO, of a very fast-growing startup here, and he goes, I'm interested in how you started because most guys like you will go do consulting work while you figure out your next project. Yeah. And what happened to me was I was actually working on a tea company when I started this. I was working on a drinking tea company, and I launched it when I hired that team here, like the same time, and that tea company did about 30 grand in the first 2 months. This did a little more, and I was like, you know what? I like this better. I'm going to shut down the tea company. And so that project that I was working on, this became like, I really like this because my biggest passion, what I love to do is grow things, grow businesses. Right. Like I love seeing growth, and now I get to grow a business by growing businesses. It's like, it really is the perfect match of what I like to do.
Do you miss like having your own like product though? Because like this, it's like this is, the service business and then the product business, right? Like,
yeah, let's put it this way. Sometimes it's fun to have a product, but at this point we have a whole venture arm and I own pieces of a lot of companies. Yeah. So we've been able to satiate that way.
So you have your like hands in things that.
Yeah, exactly. And so we've had that part. And also like the 3 companies we talked about, the product was business coaching. Then it was other people's t-shirts. And then it was women's activewear. Like it's never been like this super passionate product for me.
Yeah.
So it's actually, the growth has always been like where I got most excited about.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to start a product-based company, what sector would you be looking at doing something in these days?
Well, I'm working on one idea, so I can't share, but it's basically like a hole that I see in kind of the e-commerce market and the brand, like a vertical that doesn't really have a brand. So there's one specific. Beauty companies are crushing it. Beauty's really interesting. I like companies that you can drive sales through lifestyle because that means marketing control it. If you build a decent product, then the lifestyle and the marketing behind it can actually run the company versus a need-based product where, and that's where skincare gets tough because like it's still got to work.
Correct.
And versus, fashion's fun, but I think it's just too competitive and you need too many SKUs.
So saturated.
What do you think is going to happen with like this whole influencer marketing ecosystem? I mean, do you think it's going to, obviously it's existed, I mean, for as long as we can think, and it's going to continue to exist. But right now it's like, for example, it's on Instagram and all these people with followers.
I think it's just going to be another part of the marketing mix like anything else. It's not like the outlier, like it's just, you include it, you spend a small part of your budget on that part because it's another way to hit people, and it's more of just another ad channel that's
getting more creative with just like natively, weaving it in as opposed to like in your face marketing type.
Well, yeah, the way you use each channel is very important, and that's why I like the way we work is everyone's focused on one type of marketing. Like you just do Facebook ads so that you get really good at that. But I think influencer marketing used to be like a great way to hockey stick if you had a viral product. It doesn't work that way. Things don't go viral anymore because of the way social media changed.
And there's just so much shit to go viral.
Right.
You're competing with so many other people.
And the FTC regulation, they have to say they're being paid. So that put a
hashtag ad.
Right. And so that definitely changed things.
I won't name the company, and I'm sure both of you will know what I'm talking about, but there's one specific fashion company here in LA that really focuses a lot on like influencer marketing. How does a company like that, go through a year of corrections or an impending recession perhaps? Like, how do they survive that if their business is just based on that?
Well, it depends on what the recession looks like. Like, the thing is, like, people think of a recession as like kind of a binary thing, like it's 0 or 1, like everyone stops buying everything in a recession.
No, of course not.
And they probably shrink, so hopefully they don't throw a bunch of overhead over themselves to not be able to withstand that. But I think if you manage your business correctly, and there's a few that fit that profile. One has no funding, so one very, very, actually I can say there's nothing, I don't know anything private about them. Fashion Nova hasn't raised any money, and they are incredibly profitable. So in a
I think I saw they're like the number 3 or number 4 most hit, like traffic wise, most website on Shopify.
That totally makes sense. I'm surprised they're not number 1. I mean, they're like $500 million in revenue.
Yeah.
And
I think ColourPop is like right before them, and then it's Fashion Nova.
It's like all influencer marketing, no?
Yeah.
I mean, they
But they do Facebook.
They got the Jenners before they were like this big thing. They got Cardi B when she was like on TV.
Yeah.
And like,
no, he did it right, and they've not raised any money. So in a recession, all that happens to an unfunded company is you just make less money. That's what's nice about not having financing. But if you don't owe anybody anything. Correct. The moment but a business doesn't fail that doesn't have financing. The only thing that could fail for him is I don't know what his deal is with his leases or his.
I think they started in retail, right? They were like in the mall.
He's a retail company.
Yeah, they were a retail company.
And I don't know if he has what his leases look like because he has big facilities now or how he owns them. Yeah. But that's the only overhead he has so as long as he can cover his rent, which I'm sure he can at that kind of company, I'm sure it's a small part of his margin. Then unless the company literally goes to 0, he's fine. Right. It's similar to us. Like we haven't raised any money, and so I hope we don't have to do this. But the worst thing that happens here is we have to lay off people, and hopefully can still cover our rent. Right. That is the only overhead. That's the only overhead you have. Yeah. And so
what has been the biggest challenge growing Hawke Media?
People. Challenges are always people here. Our clients are volatile. We'll get fired because someone has a bad day, no matter what the outcome is, and we'll lose clients for emotional reasons. And because we're month to month, we've done it to ourselves. We'll get people that come in with a lack of commitment on their end. And so, the best clients are the ones that come in and want to work with us. We have plenty of clients that want to work at us, and like it's our fault their product sucks, kind of thing. Yeah. And so, that's been a challenge. And then internally, we have employees that, we this is a common thing is we'll hear an employee tell us that they're working on 20 clients and we go look and it's like 6, which is average here is 6. And we're like, where did you get 20? And what it is they were like helping out someone else and doing this and that. And like people, perception is reality. And if someone thinks they're overwhelmed, they're going to feel overwhelmed. And so managing people in that way, scaling up has been difficult, trusting people, et cetera. Like it's always where the challenges come from. We've had plenty of people sorely disappoint us and plenty of people, surprise us in a great way too and really step up. I watched a decent problem, nothing that bad, but a problem that I should have stepped in on yesterday on an email thread. And I just watched, some of our executives and like the team all working it out and talking. I'm like, let's see where this goes. I just let it go for an hour and then check back in on the email thread and it was solved and exactly what I would have done. And so it's like you get that side too where people start to really step up and it's amazing. And then you get the side where it's like someone that you invest in for 2 years and try to train and then give them an opportunity and train them up to be a new, either an executive or a manager or whatever. And then they go, yeah, I just got offered $5,000 a year more here, so I'm gonna go over there. You're like, why? Like, I just want to try to change a pace and and you've just invested, a lot of time and money into training that person. So those are some of the problems. Actually, the best way to put this is the first couple months in business, we had those 7 people I started with. One of them, on a Monday morning, emailed me and said, hey, long story short, I met a girl over the weekend and fell in love, and I'm in Hawaii now. I'll be working remotely. Like, what the fuck? So, sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this, but cool. And so I got a hold of him. I'm like, hey, just make sure to do your work. He's like, yeah, I got it. Next day, this really early, like we had, 8 clients. 4 of them call me the next day and go, where the hell's your guy? What are we paying you for? Like freak out. And I have all these, that's half my business. And so I call him like, what the hell, man? He's like, hey, you should be happy for me right now. It's the happiest day of my life. I'm getting married tomorrow. This guy met a girl on a Saturday, married her on a Wednesday. So
honestly, that's great,
and
man.
It was beautiful.
Skip the whole
It lasted,
process.
I think, 6 months.
Amazing.
But he also came back in 3 weeks later, like returning to work, quote unquote. I was like, wait, what? No, that's not. Had another guy that on a Friday night basically told me like, hey, he was one of our ad guys was like, hey, I'm not going to launch these ads unless you double my pay. And like, I think this guy forgot that I do all this shit. So I was like, cool, have a nice night. Click, locked him out of everything and launched the ads myself. He had designed everything. He just didn't hit play, like go. And so it was he
didn't execute that strategy very well.
No, it was really dumb. So those are 2 good examples of like crazy
let me
stuff.
set up the whole ad and not press go.
But he has access to the back end. So
yeah, exactly. And so that's the kind of stuff, like issues wise, it's always been relying.
It's very volatile, it seems.
Yeah, and it's going to be.
So many
and so
ends,
that's why, frankly, part of the benefit of growth is one crazy person that happens now and then gets a lot less of a problem with. Now we have 140 people. When we have someone go off the rails, it's like, all right, big deal. But when you have 5 people, it's a big issue.
I was having this conversation with somebody probably a few days ago about more so the millennial generation and, brand and company loyalty, working somewhere for, I don't know, a few years.
More than a year and a half.
It's become less of the norm, right?
Correct.
It's more so just let's go in there 6 to 12 months, learn our thing, move on to the next thing. Same thing happens there. And as a business owner, it's obviously disappointing because like you said, you invest time, energy, money in these people.
Yep.
But at this point, have you just kind of taken the emotional side out of it and you understand it, or it still bothers you?
It still bothers me. But taking the emotional side out of it, it absolutely bothers me. But then you have to take a look at their shoes. We're coming into a generation that was shown, their parents were shown there is no loyalty the other way. People that had 30 years at a company were fired before their pensions. It's very, it goes both ways.
Right.
And, with us, we try to do everything we can to make this a place people want to work, but we also stick to our guns with what people are worth. Part of it is we had a junior Facebook advertiser get offered $200,000 a year. We were paying her, I think, 55 to go work in another company. And we're like, good luck. That's awesome. Go there for a year. It's 4 years of what you'll make here. And even if it doesn't work out, you'll figure it out. We can't argue with that. And that's the job market we're in right now.
People are paying $200,000 for that?
Not normally. This was
I just signed up for General Assembly right here.
There you go. Yeah. But it's happening quite a bit. I mean, the job market's crazy right now. And so VC-funded companies that aren't worried about short-term viability are paying ridiculous fees.
That's insane.
And we're a target. We're a well-known, good reputation marketing firm that trains people really well.
Right.
And we put a lot of emphasis into it. But there's a cliche that I think it's been used a lot, but I always go back to it. And it's a CEO and a CFO are talking about employee development. The CEO goes, we need to invest in our people. We need to send them to trade shows, training, education. We need to really build our people up. And the CFO goes, yeah, but what if we spend all that money on them and they leave? He goes, yeah, what if we don't and they don't? It's that's I really do subscribe to that.
You're fucked if you do. You're fucked if you don't.
And I don't think you are fucked if you do, because I think you still not everyone leaves. We haven't lost our entire staff.
Right, of course.
We've invested in certain people that have been amazing for us.
Right, and they probably understand the long-term vision that if they do stay here, I mean, their potential also is that they're going to make a lot more money than they are right now.
Yeah, and they need to trust that. And for us, there's also we do believe in up or out. So it's crazy to think that we don't have any, if we have no more management positions, that channel isn't growing for us, whatever I'll use one that is growing. So Facebook advertising, let's say it's not growing at all. We've got a junior Facebook marketer that's now been doing Facebook marketing for a year and a half. We don't have any management positions for them. We're not going to move them into another channel. It's pretty reasonable to think that person's probably going to want to move somewhere else because they've spent a year and a half doing the same thing, learning from us, and they can get paid a lot more somewhere else. Mm-hmm. We're not going to pay them more. So part of it is coming to terms with the fact that some people are going to move on because there's no place to move them up. Yeah. And it's also after a year and a half, 2 years, if that person isn't good enough for us to want to promote into something else,
right?
It's okay to let them move on.
It's just crazy because their whole job at that point is based on one platform's success. If people start leaving Facebook or Facebook gets hit with something and no one's on it anymore and your conversion rates just drop significantly, it's what do I do?
And that we have two things there for our own company. One is we have a policy. If you do your job really well, you can move into another position. Yeah. So if you're a really good Facebook marketer, we will allow you to move into.
But they have to also want to do that position.
Yeah. And then we have a robust training program on all these things to train them up. So in part of our hiring philosophy, we have 3 very key criteria that are very subjective, but they're 3 criteria. It's number 1 is do you get shit done? Number 2 is learn quickly. Number 3 is be cool. So it's basically people that know how to execute and actually complete things. It's rare, actually. It's weird. Mm-hmm. Number 2, can you keep up and learn quickly? So can we take you from Facebook to influencer to search to email marketing? And you're going to jump in and figure it out really quickly because you just get it. And then number 3, are you cool? Do we actually want to hang out with you and be around you? So,
and that's how I would say a lot of companies are starting to hire now. And a lot of it is based on culture. I feel like the companies that succeed are the companies that actually have a culture.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, then there's reason to leave. There's reason to not perform. There's reason to say, fuck it, like, why am I even here?
Yep.
But if you actually give a shit about the people that you're working with, I think you are more inclined to get work done and get shit done and succeed and excel and learn. Because if you're in an environment, and this isn't even outside of work, if you're in a relationship that's a bad relationship, just bad environment, no, like, not good vibes, like, not cool, not getting shit done, all that stuff, you're not learning, you're not growing.
Right.
What's the point?
Yep.
What's the point of that?
Yeah, and like there's people, what's rewarding to see is a few things. One is the boss. I'm used to not being included in this, but all our people are at each other's birthdays, going out on the weekends. Like, they all are friends. Like, there's a study about if you're the employee productivity, if they feel their best friend works with them. So, like, knowing that a lot of people here do feel that way, it's just awesome. Like, my partner and I talk about it all the time. We're maybe 4th or 5th on the list in terms of loyalty. Like, they're loyal to each other first. They're loyal to the brand, maybe. They're loyal to, like, working in Santa Monica, but to me and my partner, like, we're very far. Like, they probably, I don't.
Which is a good thing.
No, it's fine. It's to be expected. It's to be pragmatic. I'd love if everybody was here because they like are devoted followers of me and be helpful in some ways, but it's just not realistic.
Yes and no, because then this company is based off of you, and
that's fair too.
If you want to build a legacy and you want to build an actual, and I say this to
and step out of certain roles,
You don't want a company that's based on one person, because that's not a company.
Yeah.
That's just a solopreneurship that can like die instantly as soon as the founders dead.
Oh yeah, no,
like both like actually dead and just like doesn't want to do it anymore.
I work very hard to make it so that I am not required to be here.
And these days, I feel like a lot of people want to become the face of the company, which is great. But if the company is you, that's not a company.
No, totally. Yeah, it goes both ways. With like, I think a lot of B2B companies, you need to have a face now because there's a lot of things an individual can do that a company can't.
Right.
A company can't really write a book. A company can't go speak at events. A company can't, be on a podcast. Of
course.
It is about
for like these athletes and like people that are in the media. Do you think that it hurts them? Like, for example, like take Kanye West right now, like all the stuff he's talking about, like, and do you think for certain companies, it hurts them?
No, I forgot who said it, but it's like, just make sure they spell my name right. Like, all press is good press. Sorry to say it.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's been a great example, not to get too political with it, but like the more they talked about him, he spent way less money on his campaign. But who do you remember more than anyone in that campaign? It's because the media paid attention.
And he knew that.
Bad. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was brilliance in that sense. Like, from a marketing perspective, he did a great job.
Well, the guy is a marketer.
Yeah.
He's 100%. Not like, he's nothing else. Elon Musk, I think, has taken that exact same model as well.
So there's something interesting. I heard a kind of, kind of opinion on both Elon Musk and Donald Trump, which is, if you say ridiculous shit all the time, people stop noticing. And then you can say whatever you want. Yep. And so, Elon Musk has kind of taken the same approach. Now, I don't know how much he thought it was going to backfire like it did, but there are a few people that have taken that approach of just saying ridiculous shit publicly to a point, like Kanye West, that get to a point where you're like, whatever. Oh, Kanye West is saying something crazy again. Whatever, and you stop caring, but all you're hearing now is Kanye West. Right. Your opinion doesn't change, so it's not going to hurt him anymore.
On the flip side, though, I think that again, like people like the Trumps, the Musks, and Kanye West, they've normalized, that crazy shit that they say. Which and the problem is with that is that those guys have impact. Like, they actually impact people that are, in society.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a negative impact. Like, yeah, sure, we're numb to it now, but it's not a good numb. Like, it's not like, perfect, Trump's right.
Yeah, politically, totally agree.
You know what I mean?
For their own sake, I don't think they're hurting themselves.
Oh, absolutely not.
But they're hurting other things. But
for sure.
I totally agree. I'm not happy where things
No. Yeah, I turned on the news and they were talking about Kanye West the other day, like about, I mean, it was like I think Fox News or something. Like, it's just.
I mean, he met with Trump,
Yeah.
But, it might be a good lesson for marketing about, how companies might position themselves, not to say crazy fucking shit, but do and say things that stick.
Well, no, stand for something.
Right. And I think Nike did that with the Kaepernick thing.
Yeah, I think you need to stand for something. I think people, and I do believe, like, one thing I do agree with, it's gotten too PC. I think it's like, let's stop being ridiculous here. What was it? Steve Carell went on saying, like, The Office would have been canceled a long time ago if it was in today's climate.
Right.
And
that
so,
makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it's just, that's sad. Like, let's not, some of the stuff that gets talked about, it's like, this is ridiculous. This is not a problem. Like, oh God, someone cracked a joke like that. It's gotten too PC, but
also the laws have kind of followed, like a lot of advertising law. I mean, like, I'm sure I recently found out that when you're doing a Facebook ad, you can't write things like family or target families because you're like, because some people don't have families.
Yeah.
So you can't say like view this because blind people can't view.
Yeah.
Which again, it makes sense, but then there's so many limitations now that are also affecting business, affecting the way we market, advertise.
No, I know. And it's like, at some point, like, people understand where they stand versus, it'd be like if I saw an ad that said, if you're a woman, click here, am I supposed to be offended?
No.
It's, it's like, and that's not to compare to blind people, but
of course.
Whatever, if it was a disability of mine, it's like, yeah, I get that. Like, I tore something in my ankle, and if it's someone's trying to sell me running shoes, I'm not going to be like, this asshole. Like, it's like, I think, again, it goes too far that there's a victim complex now where it's like everything's happening to me, and it's like, let's get over it in some senses. But yeah, back to the point on what you were saying with the being loud, there was
like the crazy shit.
Well, and what the sad truth is, part of this is it's also created an environment where we've realized from crisis management perspective, don't ever admit to it, don't ever apologize. That is the way to handle crisis these days. Yeah. That's how Donald Trump did it. That's how... I won't pass judgment. Who knows which way it went with Kavanaugh, but if he did do it, he definitely didn't admit to it. Like, don't admit, and you are going to be on this, like that's the message we're starting to send, which is scary because you can take, as a marketer, you can jump on it and be like, screw morals, I'm just going to go take advantage of the fact that, or you can still be a good person. And in the long run, I don't know which one wins, to be honest. We haven't seen the outcome.
I think the good will always win at the end.
I hope so, but
I think it will, because I think inherently people... we had an episode, Pat and I, episode 40, I think we did the after hours, and we were talking about how, our politicians really are not representative of the actual people of our country.
Yeah.
And I think that people, especially now, just see the bullshit, they see through the noise, and just, it's honestly, it's almost disgusting to watch, these people that are in DC representing us. I think at the end of the day, true democracy will win. I really believe. I'm hopeful. I believe it. It might not be tomorrow, but I think that sooner rather than later, it will prevail.
Well, it generally swings, and so it goes good for a while, it goes bad for a while, because that's just the nature of the beast. But yeah, I mean, I'm really curious to see what happens next month, and what happens. And the sad truth is, he's done. At this point, I think he does deserve a little credit for the economy. Like, he's now 2 years in. Like, when he started claiming, in February, doing good things for the economy of his after, it's like unemployment a month into work. Like, come on, that was Obama. Let's be real.
Right. Yeah.
But 2 years in, he's kept it afloat.
So when I was in college, the best thing so George W. Bush came to speak, and I was luckily one of the students that was invited to hear him speak, and I wasn't expecting much from him in terms of like eloquency, because of just how we've seen him as president.
Yeah.
But the moderator then asked him, how do you view your legacy? Now you've been, not the president for 6, 7, 8 years it was at the time. And he said, look, he's like, they're still writing books about George Washington. And, they're still writing books about how his legacy impacted this country. Yep. You can't judge my work 5 years ago right now.
Yep.
And, I think that's what people forget, and I think it applies to marketing as well, is that it's not just this short-term thing. Like, as a company, as a brand, you have to build a relationship with your customers. That's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to bake a cake, in just one day. You got to bring the ingredients together. You got to get the recipe down. You got to practice and make it perfect. It takes time. And so, whether it's politics, whether it's business, whether it's in real estate, whatever the industry is, it's going to take time to like succeed. And I think marketing and advertising works when you give it time, when you're patient.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. It takes 3 to 4 months to really see through the beginning of an advertising campaign, especially even DR. Like, you want to give it time, because there's a purchase cycle. People take time to think about what they're buying. It takes time to build that relationship. And people love to go, well, how do we speed that up? It's like, well, it doesn't take 9 women a month to have a baby.
Right.
Like, it just takes that time. You have to do it. And we explain the details about it, but it's same thing. It takes time to see the results of the changes you made, especially when you're talking about the largest economy in the world.
I see you have a Rubik's Cube on your table, and you have a little painting here. Is there like something significant about that? What's your record time?
This was a gift. I don't know how to solve this Rubik's Cube. My assistant does and loves to solve it in different ways and leave it on my desk. And that we do websites for artists in exchange for art, hence the art everywhere.
Sweet.
So
that's a great deal.
When we do one at a time, but are constantly looking for new artists to work with. So
Nice.
we got some really cool art. The new office we're building has it's set up to be a gallery too.
Oh, sweet. That's very cool. Well, Erik, this has been awesome, man. I feel like we could sit here and talk all day, but we know you have work to do and want to, let you go enjoy your weekend. So
appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, guys.
Erik.